president of Pratt Recycling. Ryan is a corrugated market analyst for Bloomberg, and they're going to share with us their perspective on OCC recycling rate in the U.S.
Corrugated packaging is the lifeblood of our economy. At Bloomberg, that's one of the things I cover, and I help people understand what's happening when it refers to corrugated packaging and what demand is going to look like. It's a huge success. I haven't seen any recent data on it, but anecdotally, people think about 75% of the world's goods at one point in time will travel in a corrugated box. Well, in a similar fashion, old corrugated boxes are a lifeblood to the recycling industry, and so there's some symbiosis between what happens for new corrugated boxes and old corrugated boxes in the circular nature of that economy. A recycling rate is a comparison of two numbers, right? There's a numerator and there's a denominator, and it tells a story when you compare those two numbers. But right now, the recycling rate that we know it doesn't tell the right story, in my opinion, and it's misunderstood and misapplied when it's largely talked about. For instance, the narrative that we see all over the place right now is that 91.4% of all boxes get recycled. In 2021, it was 88%, but the narrative still remained that it was all boxes are getting, 80 to 90% of all boxes are being recycled. And so that narrative is then repeated. So there's a clip here in the lower left-hand corner from a couple different publications. One was the TampaBay.com and the other is the Penny Hoarder, basically just regurgitating the same narrative. And then it's also regurgitated by companies like International Paper and people in the paper trade. Now, paper recycling is a huge success. And the paper trades and paper manufacturers have done a great job helping consumers understand that it's highly recyclable, easily recyclable, and something that they can very easily participate in. But there's a problem. States like Colorado, for instance, this is right from their website, their data shows that they only recycled 328,000 tons of corrugated. Now, based on a waste characterization from 2018, roughly 6.5% of their municipal waste was OCC. It's an estimate. So if we do the calculations there, their total OCC in the state was about 716,000 tons. They recycled 328,000, so it's about a 45% recycling rate, or maybe a capture rate, or I don't know what kind of terminology we want to use, but it doesn't say the same narrative. It's not the same. So where did things go wrong? Well, as I mentioned, it's a comparison of two numbers. The numerator is recovery, so we talk about what's consumed from domestic mills in the U.S. We add in what's exported. On the bottom is supply, and right now, to the best of my ability, the supply is domestic production of corrugated minus exports, and added to it imports. So according to the calculation, the supply number should be around 38.84 million tons, and that leaves me scratching my head a little bit. So where would all of these, what about imported boxes and exported boxes? We haven't touched upon that. Well, I went ahead and I'm going to give you the secret sauce here. This is how I've estimated. Emphasis on estimated, because there is no real great way to understand how many boxes are coming into the U.S. I selected a single pack corrugated carton that went into a master pack corrugated carton. There was no allowance for internal dunnage. We're just assuming single basis weights. We weren't trying to be super detailed in this, but just get a high level understanding of what might be coming to the country. We used the TOPS program to pack out a 40-foot container. Then we estimated that from a TEU standpoint, 20-foot equivalent unit, that roughly 1,700 pounds of corrugated were going to be in each TEU. Again, this was an estimation. So then we had to figure out how many containers were coming in and out of the country every year, so we triangulated the data. On a high level, we took the National Retail Federation number of TEUs in and out of the country, and we applied some of this methodology, calculating what might happen. In fact, when it came to the total TEUs, we discounted, I said about 75% of the world's good travel in a corrugated box. We discounted that number by 25% because we had no idea. Again, we just going to come up with a conservative estimate. So we discounted by 25%, and then actually we, for a high level with the NRF detail, we didn't use 1,742 pounds per TEU. We actually discounted it down to 1,500 pounds per TEU. Just again to be conservative, we wanted to see what was going on. The second level that we used to triangulate was from the Journal of Commerce, the top 100 importers and exporters. We applied some logic. I didn't believe like a Michelin tire would go in a corrugated box, so clearly we didn't count those. But when you had companies like Samsung or GE, those were likely going to go in a corrugated box. So we estimated, again, what would potentially be coming in and out based on who those top 100 importers and exporters. And fun fact, you know what the #1 export from the U.S. is? It's air. Almost 60% of the exported containers are empty. Just random tidbit. I don't know if people knew that or not, but we export more empty containers than anything else. The third level was we used U.S. Census data, again, to segregated by harmonized system codes. So there's about 100 different codes listed by different commodities. And I went through and just said, what are the likelihood that livestock are going to be shipped in a corrugated box? Probably not. Various goods are. So we used logic to determine which ones and which ones would not be, but use that 1742 number for those imports and those exports. All right, so we came up from an import standpoint after we triangulated all. The interesting thing about having three different sources of information was you could kind of figure out where you were going right or where you're going wrong, and all of the numbers were landing in this between 15.5 million and 17 million tons imported, and on the export side, 2.7 seemed to be on the high end. So we actually decided to use the higher end of that one. But this was the basis for adding into the supply, and we figured we needed to add this in there because we see these into the landfill. Myles is going to give us a little bit more detail. I mean, the state of Colorado, like I said, was 300 and some thousand tons in their landfills. Myles will indicate that he's seen a lot there too. But one of the things was, if we were right here, we would see that 16 roughly million tons, 15, 16 million tons in landfills across the U.S. every year. And that would be the way we could back check ourselves, is to figure out if we were correct. Is this a realistic measure, or is it not realistic? If we find 25 million tons in landfills across the U.S., maybe we were too conservative. If we only find 10 million tons, maybe we're too aggressive. So this is an estimation. This is how we got there. If I'm wrong, if you have better data, I'm happy to see it, and we can work together to find a new rate here. But from a supply standpoint, in the denominator, rather than the 38 million tons that we presented earlier that could be there, we see it as about 50.2, and Myles is going to go into what happens in the numerator. And thank you very much.